Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Imagine a country spending millions, not on, say, a new highway or a school, but on, well, convincing people in a foreign capital. It sounds maybe a little strange, right?
Yeah.
Especially when there are needs at home, but it's actually a strategic move. A lot of nations do it, often, pretty quietly. Today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly this kind of thing. We're looking at the recent news about Kenyan President William Ruto and his strong defense of spending serious money on U.S. lobbyists. This isn't just about accounting, it's about understanding these almost hidden gears of international power, influence.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is how it just exposes the complex reality of modern diplomacy. We'll explore why a country would spend this kind of money on advocacy abroad, what specific things they're hoping to get out of it, and importantly, why it almost always stirs up a big debate back home. It's right at that crossroads of national interest, global strategy, and, well, public opinion, something you don't often get a clear view of.
Exactly. And our mission today is to help you peel back those layers, go beyond the headlines. We want to get a handle on the strategic thinking, the real goals behind these moves. We're trying to shed light on how countries work, often subtly, to make their voice heard, make their influence felt in powerful places like Washington, D.C. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay. The numbers, they're pretty significant, and that's really what sparked the public conversation. So the specifics are an investment of 1.1 million US dollars. That's about KSH 143 million, and it wasn't a lump sum.
Right, it was spread out.
Yeah, spread over 7 months. So doing the math, that's a roughly $157,000 every single month going out. And the firm getting this money, it's a known U.S. lobbying firm, Jefferson Wateridge. They're right there in Washington, D.C., where influence is, well, kind of the main currency.
Mhm.
And it was President Ruto himself who confirmed it, who defended the spending, which kind of turned maybe a quiet diplomatic expense into a major national talking point in Kenya.
Yeah, and that immediately raises a really important question, doesn't it? Why would a head of state step out and openly defend spending like this, especially knowing it's going to get, criticism and scrutiny from the public? It really suggests a strong belief inside the government that this isn't just an expense line. It's seen as a vital, maybe even non-negotiable investment in Kenya's future, its global standing. It sounds like a calculated risk, hoping for a potentially big return.
Okay, so what is that calculation? What's the defense?
Well, President Ruto didn't just talk vaguely about diplomacy. He laid out some very specific strategic reasons, four key points, really. The first one, and maybe the broadest, is about enhancing Kenya's overall image and brand internationally. Think of it like high-stakes reputation management for an entire country.
So shaping how Kenya is seen, getting past maybe old stereotypes or limited views.
Exactly. The goal is to actively market Kenya, promote its agenda, make sure it's seen positively, not just, as a developing country needing aid, but as a stable partner, a strategic player, a good place for investment. It means highlighting things like democratic progress, economic potential, its role as a regional leader, even its culture.
That sounds pragmatic, a strong argument from a leadership perspective. But I guess for people back home, seeing that much money go out, it must raise questions, right, about transparency or maybe immediate needs not being met.
Oh, absolutely. That tension is really central to the whole debate.
Yeah.
But the strategic thinking is that a strong international brand can actually unlock opportunities that, domestic spending alone might not. And that leads directly into Ruto's second point, actively countering negative narratives.
Okay. So defense as well as offense.
Precisely. We live in a world where information, and unfortunately misinformation, travels incredibly fast. Political opponents, maybe certain activist groups, even sometimes just poorly informed media, they can spread stories that damage a country's reputation, especially in key places like Washington. So lobbyists, in this view, are like a proactive shield. They work to give the government's perspective, provide context, try to stop reputational damage before it happens and starts influencing policy.
So it's not just building the good image, but protecting it, too. It really does sound like a bit of a global chess game. Every bit of information matters, and these lobbyists are trying to make sure their side isn't put in check by bad info.
That's a good way to put it. And building right on that, Ruto's third reason is very much about economics,
Yeah.
attracting investment and partnerships. This lobbying spend is framed as a way to actively bring in foreign direct investment, build strategic alliances, and basically open doors for economic opportunities that Kenya needs for growth.
Right, translating that positive image into actual dollars, actual partnerships. Exactly. It's about tangible economic benefits.
Okay, that's a compelling argument for any leader. But how does a lobbying firm help with something concrete like attracting investment? Seems like a jump from just image.
That's where the how is key. Lobbying firms aren't just, putting out nice press releases. They identify specific U.S. companies, maybe investment funds, that align with Kenya's goals, say, in tech or agriculture or infrastructure. Then they arrange high-level meetings, Kenyan officials meeting potential investors. They might also work on the policy side, pushing for, say, favorable trade terms, maybe specific tariff adjustments or investment protection deals that make Kenya look like a safer, better bet.
Ah, okay.
They're basically sophisticated matchmakers and advocates. They're trying to shape both the perception and the actual rules of the game to draw in capital.
That makes a lot more sense. They're bridging perception and policy,
Yeah.
which I guess brings us to Ruto's fourth point, which sounds like the most direct one, influencing U.S. foreign policy. Exactly. This isn't about just general goodwill. It's about trying to directly affect specific decisions made in Washington that have real, immediate consequences for Kenya's interests.
Can you give an example? What kind of decisions?
Sure. For Kenya, this could mean pushing for continued U.S. security aid to help fight regional threats like terrorism. Or maybe ensuring specific trade preferences remain in place for Kenyan exports, like coffee or textiles, going into the U.S. market. It could also involve trying to shape how U.S. development aid projects are designed, so they align better with Kenya's own national plans. Or even trying to influence the U.S. position on certain issues in international organizations, things that matter for East Africa.
So we're talking specifics, things that affect trade, security, aid, the fine print that can mean billions of dollars or impact regional stability.
Absolutely. It's about influencing the details that can really shape outcomes for millions of people.
So it's not just getting invited to the meeting, it's trying to shape what happens at the meeting. These are really targeted efforts to shift policy, maybe even specific lines in legislation or agreements.
If you zoom out, look, in today's world, geopolitical influence is huge. So having that direct access, having a clear voice in a major global capital like Washington, it's seen by many governments as, well, non-negotiable. It's a critical asset. And these international lobbying firms, they act as the guides, the intermediaries. They know how to navigate the, let's be honest, often confusing maze of American political power.
It's not just anyone making calls, is it?
No, not at all. These firms often hire people from that world. Former congressional staff, ex-diplomats, maybe retired military, sometimes even former White House people. They bring connections, that deep understanding of how committees work, the unwritten rules of Capitol Hill, the personal relationships. That's what really moves the needle sometimes. They know who to talk to, when, and crucially, how to frame the issue for that specific audience.
So they're highly specialized navigators, almost like political strategists working behind the scenes for foreign governments. Could you maybe walk us through a practical example? How might this actually play out for Kenya?
Okay, let's take a hypothetical, but pretty realistic scenario. Imagine there's talk in Congress about new trade rules that could affect, say, Kenyan coffee exports, make them less competitive. The lobbying firm would jump in. First, they might prepare detailed briefings, policy papers explaining why Kenyan coffee is good for U.S. consumers or businesses, and how new tariffs could hurt Kenya's economy, maybe even its stability.
Right. Laying out the argument.
Then, they identify the key players in Congress, members on the relevant committees, maybe Ways and Means in the House, or the Senate Finance Committee, perhaps focusing on those whose states or districts benefit from trade with Kenya, or who generally support development aid. They'd arrange very targeted meetings, maybe bring Kenyan trade officials over for a fly-in to meet these specific lawmakers. Or they might even help arrange for U.S. congressional delegations to visit Kenya, see the coffee farms firsthand. Make it real, make it personal.
Putting a face to the issue.
Exactly. And maybe, at the same time, they're working subtly with media outlets in D.C., placing opinion pieces or background stories about why fair trade with this region matters.
Right.
The goal is to build support, educate the decision makers, and ultimately try to shape the final wording of that legislation to protect Kenya's interests.
Wow, okay, that paints a much clearer picture of the actual mechanics. It really shows how these firms aren't just selling an idea. They're actively trying to shape laws, trade deals, aid packages by getting right in there with the people writing them, making sure a country's voice isn't just heard, but actually listened to, maybe even acted on amongst all the noise in Washington.
Yeah, it's about navigating a really complex, often opaque system. Try and make sure your country isn't forgotten, or worse, accidentally harmed by decisions made thousands of miles away. So you see the tension clearly, right?
Mhm.
On one side, there's the public reaction to what looks like a lot of money being spent overseas. On the other, the government argument that this is a vital investment for the country's long-term future and prosperity. It's a balance many countries struggle with.
Okay, so let's bring this home. You might be listening and thinking, interesting about Kenya, but why does this matter to me? Well, I think this case really highlights some basic truths about how the world works, things that are often hidden. First, it shows you those hidden engines of diplomacy, the stuff that happens behind the scenes, away from the formal summits. It's crucial to how countries actually compete and cooperate. It's like seeing below the waterline of the iceberg.
Hmm.
Second, it really underlines the huge financial value placed on perception and advocacy in global politics. Countries are willing to pay real money for this because they believe that image, that ability to make their case effectively, translates directly into economic and strategic gains. It's a tangible cost for something intangible but powerful influence.
And third, building on that, it shows that foreign policy isn't just governments talking to governments anymore. It involves these really sophisticated, layered efforts to shape opinions both public and political in other countries. It's a whole strategy to secure your place and push your agenda. Understanding these dynamics, I think, helps you process global news more critically, to look beyond just the headlines and see the complex games of power and influence constantly playing out. These lobbying efforts, controversial as they are really a fundamental part of how international relations work today.
So, wrapping up, we've really untacked President Ruto's defense for this multi-million-dollar investment in U.S. lobbying. We look at his arguments about boosting Kenya's image, attracting investment, fighting negative stories, and crucially, trying to directly influence U.S. policy. It's a clear statement about how important they see having an effective voice in global power centers.
And it leaves us with a pretty big question, one that lots of countries face, not just Kenya. Is spending millions on international influence like this a necessary cost of doing business in today's interconnected world? A strategic imperative? Or does it represent, an extravagance? Money that maybe diverts critical resources from more immediate visible needs back home?
Yeah, definitely something to chew on as you think about the hidden forces shaping our world, how even decisions about a budget line item can echo internationally. Until next time, keep digging.